which means rainbow woman. And I'm from Unitarians. So I'm part Ojibway and French Canadian. And my family comes from Unitarians and Stony Point nations. So I wanted to start off my presentation with the prayer for the acknowledging the ancestors and the 4 directions. So it goes, give thanks to the east where the sun rises, give thanks to the south for the highest point of summer, give thanks to the west for the knowledge we'll learn, and every day is a learning experience, and give thanks to the north for our ancestors and those who walked before us, because with them life is possible. Miigwech, 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 miigwech. So when I was approached to share some Indigenous knowledge with everyone here today, I immediately thought of the 7 grandfather teachings. There's a lot of stories as Anishinaabe people that we have and teachings, but this one was a foundational teaching, and it's something that we try to pass on to our younger generations and our children. And it's an important model for how we walk in life and how we treat each other and the land. So I'm gonna just give you a little background too about myself, since we're kind of new here. I think we've been joining in for the past 6 months. So growing up, I always had this like identity struggle. I felt like I had 2 feet and like both my feet in 2 different worlds. One, my Indigenous side, my Indigenous culture. My other side, from my mom, was French Canadian, and I grew up Catholic from her side. And in her family, it was pretty common if you became either a priest or a nun. And my grandmother was actually a nun for many years until she left and had her own family in her 40s. So I kind of just wrestled with how to marry the two sides together. But yeah, I just really struggled with that. But where am I here? So, and I don't mean any disrespect to the Catholic religion or anything, but I just never resonated with it. I didn't really understand how we were supposed to see ourselves as above creation, when what I'd been taught from my Indigenous side was that we are all connected and that we were all a part of creation. And it wasn't until I had some pretty traumatic events happen in my life that I really found solace in fully embracing my Indigenous culture and identity. So in our culture, we talk about this thing called blood memory. And blood memory is can be described as that good feeling you get when you're embracing or taking part in your ancestral knowledge or bloodline. So for example, speaking the language, participating in ceremony, listening to cultural music, eating traditional food, and taking part in ceremony and traditions are all examples of how you can connect to your blood memory. You know it's right because it makes your spirit feel good. And I believe that we all have blood memory. It's just different depending on your background or where you came from. I remember as a little girl, I used to always tear up when I heard like the sound of a hand drum being played, and I never really understood what that meant until I got older and I had a teaching of blood memory, and I was just being moved by the music. So yeah, I'll get into, I wanted to share some language before I started my presentation about the 7 grandfathers. I'll just be using some of these words today just so everyone is more familiar with them. The first one is Anishinaabe, and this means first man or original man. And I'll be using it to talk about the people of the Indigenous people of North America. The next one is Minoba Madzwin, and this is the good way of life, just living your life a good moral way. And this is the life that our ancestors planned for us. And the next one is Turtle Island. So Turtle Island is referring to North and Central America. And Turtle Island is a part of a lot of creation stories, because the turtle first the turtle formed land on its back for all of us to live on. That's what we believe. All right, where am I? So the 7 grandfather teachings, they're also known as the 7 sacred gifts, or the 7 Anishinaabe principles, or 7 principles. They are traditional teachings that have been passed on through generations. These teachings are a guideline on how we should live and how we should treat one another and treat creation, treat Mother Earth. You could look at it as sort of a code of ethics for Indigenous people. So soon I'll be sharing the actual story and where it came from. I wanted to point out too that sometimes there are variations from nation to nation about this story, but overall the values and meaning still remain the same. I know some nations have different spirit animals that are part of the story, and some words may slightly differ, but overall the values and meaning remain the same. All right. So my next slide this is a picture of the 7 grandfathers. So I'm going to get into the story of the 7 grandfathers. So the story goes that there were 7 grandfathers who were powerful spirits, and they were given the responsibility to watch over Turtle Island. The grandfathers gathered in a lodge that was said to be the center of all knowledge, and to discuss what had been going on with Turtle Island. They saw for some time that the people had not been living in a good way, and it was full of fighting and corruption, and there was a lot of sickness in the land. So they decided that they needed to change that. So they sent for their helper to search Turtle Island for someone who they felt was suited to learn these gifts. Their 7 gifts. So their helper traveled the Turtle Island for many years and came across a young boy who was just born. He was innocent, his mind was pure, and he was still deeply connected to the spirit world. So he was chosen to take on the 7 gifts, on the role of learning the 7 gifts. Every 7 years of his life, he was visited by a spirit animal who would guide him and guide him to learn one of the specific teachings and what they meant. So, like I said, these teachings were about a way of life that would guide the people away from all the negativity and corruption, back to that Minoba-Madawin way of life, that good way of living. And the 7 grandfathers told the boy that once he learned all the teachings, that all these teachings had to be used together in order to work. None of the teachings were to be left out. And this is the original way of life that the ancestors had planned for us. So these are the 7 teachings: love, wisdom, respect, truth, humility, honesty, and courage. And sometimes courage kind of, you'll see I use bravery in mine because that's how I was taught, but it just depends on which nation you get the teaching from. So the first one is love. And love is the gift from the eagle. The eagle has the ability to fly the highest and closest to the Creator. We must remember to hold great love for each other, love for the land, and most importantly, love for ourselves. We must remember the power of sharing love that is unconditional. To know that when we are at our weakest, love is what we need the most. To know love is to know true peace, and with love, all things are possible. And the next one is respect. This is a gift of the buffalo. We honor and respect all of creation. We must stay mindful to the balance of life and do not take more of what we need. Do not be wasteful and respect the gifts of the land. We must give respect to gain respect. Respect yourself and the land you stand on. Respect all people. So I wanted to point out to our people, respect is very important, especially respecting your elders. Always, I remember it being drilled in my head as a little kid, respect your elders, respect your elders, respect your elders. And we do this because we hold our elders in high regard, because they're our knowledge keepers, and they're the ones who keep, our culture alive. And they lead the way for our future generations, and they're why we're here today. We also remember to show great respect for our ancestors. At times of ceremony or feast, we'll make sure we acknowledge our ancestors, and we'll offer a spirit plate. So we'll make a plate before we all sit down to eat and offer that to our ancestors and to Creator as a sign of gratitude. And we also always let our elders eat first or get their food first. Another way that we show respect to creation is when we're hunting or gathering. We always make sure that we say a prayer and offer tobacco, which is a sacred medicine to us, as a way of saying thank you for the life that we take to sustain us and sustain our community. We also say a prayer and give thanks when we're gathering food or medicines, and make sure we don't take too much. Also, we put down tobacco, say a prayer, and just offer gratitude and thanks for giving us the food and the medicines that we need. The next one is humility. Humility is represented by the wolf. The wolf lives for its pack. It understands its place and that it can be used, its place and its gifts, and uses it for the good of its pack. Humility is to have a modest view of yourself as a sacred part of creation, to have compassion and to know that you're created and equal to others, to be selfless and meek. Next, we have bravery. And bravery is represented, or courage is represented by the bear. This is because a mother bear shows courage and strength when she protects her cubs. So you must remember to be proud of who you are, face your fears with integrity, do what is right even when it is difficult to do so, defend what is right and what is good. And in the Ojibway language, this word, I can't say it, but it literally means to have a fearless heart. The next one is the beaver, wisdom. Wisdom is the gift from the beaver because the beaver uses its inherent gifts to survive, thrive, and protect its family. To have wisdom is to know what is true and what is right. Wisdom is meant to be carried through our stories and used for the good of the people. We must remember to use our inherent gifts wisely and live and learn by our wisdom. So honesty. Honesty is the gift from Kichisabe, which we know as Bigfoot. This also sometimes is represented by the raven. And Sabe reminds us to be ourselves and not to pretend to be someone we're not. To have honesty in facing a situation is another way of being brave. To walk in life with integrity is to know honesty. Always live and speak honestly. Be honest first with yourself, and you will more easily be able to be honest with others. Walk with an honest heart and honest mind. And our next one is truth. Truth is represented by the turtle. The turtle is important because it was here at creation, at the creation of Earth, and it carries all of life's teachings on its back. Speak the truth. Do not deceive others or yourself, or do not deceive yourself or others. Show sincerity in all you say and do. And truth is knowing all of these gifts. So here I have just like a summarized version of the 7 grandfather teachings. We believe in order to live a happy and good life, we must remember these teachings and continue to develop ourselves spiritually, physically, mentally, and emotionally. We must remember that we are connected to the land and all its beings, and we must walk with that knowledge in everything that we do. It is with these gifts and remembering who we are that we can walk in a good way, the Minnow B'Madwin way of life. So that's pretty much my presentation. I just wanted to say thank you for letting me share this Indigenous knowledge with you guys, and I'd love to share more. But I also want to say thank you for letting me share this today, because I know Thanksgiving, a lot of Indigenous people have a lot of strong feelings about Thanksgiving and its history. But I thought it was really beautiful to be able to share today and spend time sharing like some Indigenous knowledge with you today. So Chimigwech, thank you. So now if anyone has any questions, I will try my best to answer them.
Jenny, do you want to stop screen sharing?
Yeah.
We can have a few minutes for questions if anyone has any questions for you. So just raise your hand, unmute yourself if you have a question for Jenny or a comment. I know I was struck by how, you know, the parallels between the 7 grandfather teachings and some of our UU principles.
Yeah, I remember when I was first looking into joining the congregation, I looked up the Unitarian 7 principles, and I was like, I liked that I saw the similarities, and I thought that was really, really cool.
Mary,